Thunder Grunt.
Hey guys!
Bob!
Hey, Bob.
Hey, welcome to Writers Blockbusters, the show where we treat the final edit of a movie like it's a script. I want you guys to introduce yourselves and give me your Twitter handles.
I am Jimmy George. I am a screenwriter and full-time script consultant. My Twitter handle is @JimmyRGeorge.
I am Jamie Nash. I am a screenwriter, and my Twitter handle is @Jamie_Nash.
And I'm Bob Rose. I do a bunch of shit. And my my Twitter handle is @ThunderGruntBob. And we're going to start today's podcast with a story from Sir Jimmy George over here.
Yes, I don't ever get to tell this story, because when do you get to tell Joaquin Phoenix stories?
Right.
I was in 2002, I was an extra on a movie called Ladder 49, which shot in Baltimore. Specifically, John Travolta,
Yeah.
specifically downtown Baltimore. To set up the scene, it was the heart of a Baltimore summer, like July. It was like 103 degrees, and we were pretending it was Christmas Eve. They had snow blowing in the background outside. It was they painted the scene like it was Christmas Eve. So we're all decked out in winter gear, suits. It's hot as hell. Everybody smells like ass. And we are doing a Christmas Eve scene. And the scene is a Christmas Eve mass, and Joaquin Phoenix's character has been busy fighting a fire. So he's missing the Christmas Eve mass with his family. And he rushes in while we're singing Silent Night all together in a packed church, and just makes the end of the Christmas Eve mass. So I was sitting on the end of a pew as an extra, which was really exciting because I had not been making movies yet, and this was like my first time doing it, and it was like a big budget movie. And when they blocked the scene, like the camera and the whole scene played out right next to my face, so it was awesome. And where he was stopping was like right next to me, when he was ducking in with his family and everything. So we did it over and over. We did it like 50 times. I sang Silent Night over and over and over. And the funny thing is, they didn't even use Silent Night in the movie. It was a different song they played over us singing, so it looked like we were singing.
Right.
But we were singing a different song than what ended up in the movie. But so everybody's stressed. It's hot as hell. It's super miserable. But at the same time, people are excited about being in a movie. And one of the takes, they stopped, and the people on the crew were doing a really poor job, and people just mobbed him. Like the extras just mobbed Joaquin Phoenix.
This was like post-Gladiator. So.
This is right after Gladiator.
Right after
Gladiator. Like 2 years after
Right.
Gladiator.
So
he's in a good place in his career.
Right.
And this was early. This was when cell phones were kind of new still.
Mm-hmm.
And all these people are handing him cell phones, asking them to talk to their friend. Say hi to my friend. It's Joaquin Phoenix. And he's being really gracious and like grabbing one phone after another and saying hi. And you could tell like people in the crew are like, what do we do? Oh shit. But you could tell he was getting frustrated because there's like people one after the other handing him phones. And he looks over at me and he's sort of like losing his patience. And he looked over at me and I said, Merry Christmas. And he said, Merry Christmas. And we just shared a smile. So that's my Joaquin Phoenix
And
story.
then he did an evil cackle.
Right.
That's my Joaquin Phoenix story.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Jimmy, for sharing.
Relevant, not really, but
Well, I mean, you came into contact with the Joker.
I did.
So
In 2002.
in 2002. I, for some reason, remember that movie being later. I don't know why.
It came out in 2004, but this was in the
Okay.
summer of 2002.
Okay.
Yeah. And I got paid $65 that day. That shows you why movies cost so much. Because every single person in that room like me got paid $65.
And that was a whole day's work too, right?
Yeah, it was like 15 hours. Yeah,
And then they couldn't get the rights to Silent Night.
they're right. So,
Public domain.
all my
hundreds
singing
of
was
years
for
old.
nothing.
And they had to
Fuck.
they had to pay for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So on that note, we're gonna talk about a Joaquin Phoenix movie, which a few people saw, called The Joker.
Yes.
Or sorry, Joker, not the
Joker.
Joker.
Lots of decisions not to make. It's never said "the" in the movie.
Yeah, I think that's intentional too,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
20 years from now, they'll reboot it and it'll be called The Joker.
The
Joker.
Jamie,
Yes.
how is it doing at the box office currently?
As of right now, the movie
Which
is
today is October 18th, 17th.
Yes. And
That's 18th.
this total is as of the 16th. So
Okay.
Just to tell you, in case anybody's fact checking on the back.
I don't think
"Hey,
they
that's
care.
the-
They don't care.
That's the 16th. That's something.
Yeah.
It's $213 million
Domestic.
domestic. And then
Oh,
worldwide,
damn.
it's $606 million.
Oh, they're making a sequel. There's no
Holy
way.
Shit.
On a production budget of $55
I had
million.
no idea.
They're making a sequel.
Yeah.
They're gonna-
55 million and it's gonna make $1 billion.
It's going to be one of the most profitable DC movies of all time.
I mean,
Wow.
I didn't know the budget was that low.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Wow.
insane. Okay. They're gonna make us. They're gonna force a sequel into existence. Yeah. Okay. Well,
Damn.
damn right. I mean, I didn't actually know it was doing that good. It's speaking to overseas audiences that much.
Yeah, that's the shocking thing.
Yeah, it really
Lots
is
of
shocking.
Poor, downtrodden, mentally ill people. I
So-
guess.
just
yeah. Okay. Well,
Close to 400 million overseas.
Jesus,
so
that's incredible.
with that said, who wrote this shit?
Who wrote this shit?
It's not. I'm not calling it shit. But you know what
It's
I mean. You know what I mean?
it's a man known for his superhero writing ability, Todd Phillips.
Todd Phillips. Enough has been said about him. Oh, I guess before we go any further, I should have said too,
Mhm.
we're not going to be discussing any of theories, fan theories,
hmm
any controversy, any of that bull. We're not talking about it.
This is about the construction.
This is about the script
And
and the
technique.
construction and technique. So, like, you said Todd Phillips. He said some stuff. We're not talking about that stuff he said. Whatever. We'll talk about his career.
What did he say, Bob? No.
Let's get into it. Okay.
I didn't hear this.
You're right.
And he also wrote, he had a co-writer, Scott Silver. Scott Silver wrote movies like The Mod Squad, 1999.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay.
8 Mile,
Oh shit.
2002.
Successful.
Curtis Hanson movie. I
The
like it.
Fighter.
Oh,
Solid movie.
2010.
yeah, good
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Finest Hours, 2016. Joker, and his next movie, I'm very interested in, Untitled Hulk Hogan biopic.
Whoa.
Oh, that's the one starring Chris Hemsworth, right?
Chris Hemsworth, yeah.
Yeah. That
That's-
should be awesome.
That's like my most
Wow.
anticipated movie.
I know. It's kind of amazing.
Chris Hemsworth is
As
Hulk
Hulk
Hogan.
Hogan.
I have not heard of this until
Yeah,
now.
dude. Chris Hemsworth. And Todd Phillips obviously is known for Hangover, Road Trip.
Yeah,
Uh,
not this type of movie.
No, I mean, and that's been said a billion times.
Yeah.
That's like the shock, I guess, of this whole thing is that he's doing it.
Good for him.
I mean, I thought War Dogs was kind of the transitional one too.
I haven't seen that.
I liked War Dogs. I thought it was good. An anti-hero movie where the characters are not, the protagonists are not likable.
Oh, so it's sort of it's a transition piece to this type of
Although
material.
people would argue that most of his protagonists are not likable
Mm.
because his movies have generally been said to be written for frat boys and stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, which I think has relevance to Joker a little bit, like just the progression of who he's talking to in his work.
It's weird.
But yeah,
it's like he's the guys that Joker shoots. If you look at his life,
Yeah. Well,
I was thinking that too. Like I was thinking, like
so it's
I think
odd.
this Joker would have killed Todd.
That's weird to say, but I felt that while
Yeah,
watching
right.
it.
the other thing I remember about Todd Phillips, and I didn't see these movies, but I know he started his career in documentary.
Mm.
G.G. Allen.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I think that
Jesus.
is
Yeah.
I think that might, and if anything, I can kind of see that in this, and then even
If
Mm.
there was ever a musician who was the Joker, it was
right.
G.G. Allen,
Right.
right?
Mm.
I guess I don't know.
So there's something about it.
Yeah,
you
it
know.
lends itself to that style. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good point.
Yeah, that was the one thing when I was coming at it. I was kind of skipping over like Hangover and stuff like that, and going back to his documentary career. Again,
Roots.
I don't know his documentary career really
Neither
well,
do I.
but I knew he came from that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk about him much more. It's just like
It's worth noting.
That's been the conversation about him because it's like, what?
Right.
But this is all like willed into existence because of him. Like,
what is the backstory for this coming about? Do you know it?
I don't know a lot of
I've
it.
watched some interviews with Todd
Yeah.
Phillips where he's basically said like this is something he wanted to do, and he snuck it into the studio system, and it really says everything we need to know. Is he kind of disguised a real movie,
Mhm.
quote unquote? He got in trouble for that by making it a comic book movie.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Like he said, if I made this movie and it wasn't the Joker, you'd have to do it for a lot less money and a lot less people would see it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it is the Joker.
Yeah.
And I got the money, and a bunch
Yeah.
of people are going to see it. So I think that's kind of
My
Yeah.
My
he
under-
wanted to, he wanted
That's
to
what
do
I wanted to
something.
know.
Yeah,
I don't
that's-
know.
my
That's-
understanding was it was hovering around there for a long time, and they did a lot of rewrites. My guess is this is just me riffing. I'm just making stuff up here, pulling stuff out of my butt. I bet some of the recent DC kind of things probably helped it come about, like Suicide Squads. Even though Suicide
Okay.
Squad made a ton of money.
Yeah, Suicide Squad did
'Cause-
great, regardless of quality. It was
One of the reasons I was asking was because I did read. I looked through the script. I didn't read it.
you
Read
actually
it.
looked through the real
Yeah,
script. Okay.
Jamie had it,
Mm-hmm.
and it almost feels. It doesn't feel like it's Ledger. It's trying to connect to Ledger, but the look of him in the script is Ledger. He's got scarred. His smile is torn
Really?
with scars. Absolutely.
So
And
that's a
in the end-
change they made.
in the end of the movie, that smile, the bloody smile in the
Mhm.
script,
Yeah.
and the script that is dated like 2018,
Mm-hmm.
he takes a piece of glass and slices his face to be the Ledger smile in the script.
It doesn't say Ledger though, right?
No, but I'm saying the look of him from the smile standpoint, it's a Glasgow smile that he has in the movie.
That's really weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it seemed to me like whenever I saw any press of him or Joaquin, how do you say it? Joaquin talking about it, they both were insistent that it was not out of disrespect, but not paying homage to any itineration.
And I'm not saying
I
that
know,
it
yeah,
is, but
yeah.
I found that part of it
right.
when I was going through, like, he takes the last moment of the movie is exactly the same in the script, except he has a piece of glass from the accident, and he takes the glass and he puts it on his wrist to end it, like with a big smile on his face, and he decides instead to take that piece of glass from his wrist and do his
I
face.
think it would have been more interesting if he got Jared Leto tattoos.
It ends with him tattooing damage
that-
on his forehead.
Right.
Damn
We're like,
it.
wow, it
Oh
is
my
an origin story.
God. So that's
Right.
why I was asking, because I wanted to know if somewhere in the gestation of this it was something else, is what I meant.
I think it was I think it was its own thing.
Okay.
That was transformed into this.
Okay.
thing, which I honestly said that years ago. I was like, comic movies are gonna get so big, we're gonna start making movies within comic book movies.
Yeah, and here we go.
Like, eventually we'll just have like a romantic comedy that takes place, and you put superheroes in the background just so you can say it's a Marvel movie.
That Iron Man.
Right. Kate
Like-
Beckinsale's in love. And
A
the Avengers
a
are fighting outside
low-level-
her apartment.
like 2 low-level Stark Industries employees.
yeah. That's going to
Find
happen.
love.
Tell me that's not going to happen. That's going to happen.
When Harry Osborn met Sally. or something
Jamie,
like
come
that.
on. That's going to happen on
Okay.
Disney Plus. Tell me that
That's
is
good. That's a good
Yeah,
title.
There
that's
you go.
come
Fuck.
on. That's going to done. Anyway, we have got a mammoth outline for
Holy
this movie.
shit. And we're already like 20 minutes
It's-
into
yeah,
this
it's fine.
podcast.
15, but
okay.
yeah, we've got a mammoth because there's a ton to talk
Let
about.
me
Yeah.
talk about my Joaquin Phoenix story first. Yeah.
And then I'll go, and then,
Okay.
yeah, right.
Well, this next segment is going to be me blabbing mostly for a few
It's good.
minutes.
But it's good stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about characters and empathy.
Right.
Yeah, because that's
So,
there's a truckload right there.
yeah, what you were saying something about your feelings on the empathy.
Yeah, well, I think that's the key to this movie. I think this movie, it doesn't have a ton of plot. The character is sort of awkward and hard to, like, he's not somebody you want to hang out with or you admire to be or anything like that. So you really have to have empathy for the character. And this movie works overtime. It's a little maybe on the nose or a little heavy-handed with getting you. I mean, having kids like steal a sign and then beat them up. Like
the first act is heavy-handed. That's the
it's
exact
heavy-handed
descriptor. Yeah,
they work very hard to get you on his side and
Yes.
make you feel for him and
Yes.
want him to have a win.
Yes. And so I've touched on this a few times in a few episodes. I went to this seminar years ago. That was the best writing seminar I've ever been to, and there's like almost no evidence that it existed on the internet. And the guy now is like in charge of creative
Sinbad
development.
taught it, I think.
Sinbad, right? It was a Sinbad screenwriting seminar.
Shazam.
Shazam the
Shazam screenwriting.
Shazam the cat.
Wait, from the alternate universe?
That's right. That's right.
Not Kazam, Shazam.
Kazam the cat.
Right.
It's a guy named David S. Freeman. It was called Beyond Structure, and I said all that because I wish I could just send you to a link to this stuff, but it's not out there. So he had this list of 40 rooting influencer techniques that he said you could find in the first act of successful films. And in the class, we watched WALL-E, which has no dialogue, for the first act. And so he showed how with no dialogue, Pixar used these rooting influencer techniques in order to make us fall in love with the robot without actually ever hearing him utter a word or anyone really utter a word. So I went through, and the script is not exactly the same, but it was enough that I could recall I've seen the movie twice, and it was enough that I could put it all together. Another weird, interesting change from the script is the sign scene happens later instead of earlier. It's like 10 pages in.
Really?
Okay.
Yep.
It's still there, but it's out of order.
So it starts with him like talking to the therapist?
social worker.
Okay.
It starts with that. Yep. So,
I don't know if that change would matter that much. But go ahead.
I think it's great. It's a great change because it goes from it laughs over the image of him laying down
to
the laughing.
Yeah.
It allows for that long, extended, awkward laugh. So I found 19 rooting influencer techniques in the first 15 pages. So here we go.
Okay.
Motor mouth. Let's do the micro machines. Opening scene, we see him painting his face as a clown. The rooting influence technique is a character displays creativity. We also see him trying to smile in the mirror, but ultimately he ends up frowning and borderline crying.
Right.
So that rooting influence technique is a character feels or hides pain. Next scene, we see him working downtown as a clown, and he's trying his hardest, and no one is paying attention to him. So that rooting influencer technique is a character is an excluded outsider. So we care. The bunch of kids steal the sign from him. That's suffers undeserved misfortune, is that technique. He chases after them to get the sign back. Character displays courage. So we care. Then the kids beat him up. Character feels pain. The next scene, we see him with the social worker, and I'm going to miss some there because there's so many in this scene. They stack them up.
Yeah, right.
We learn so much. But the big ones are, he says he wants to be a stand-up comedian, and he's been working on a routine. So that rooting influencer technique is your character is chasing a higher goal or purpose. So we care. Then we see in his written journal, I hope my death makes more sense than my life. And originally I was saying this, I thought that was showing that he was dumb and didn't know how to spell sense. But and I was like, why would they paint him as an idiot too? But the second time I watched it, I realized that's a joke. It's in his joke book.
Makes more sense than
makes more money. Then my death makes more money than my life did because I'm fucking poor.
Right.
I didn't get that went over my head.
Really? Okay.
Dude, it went over my head. I was like, oh, he can't even spell.
So you thought there was an intelligence thing. But it's not.
It's that he's fucking clever.
Yeah, right.
So character is witty, clever. Arthur says he needs more meds and nothing seems to help. We learn he's on 7 medications. So that rooting influencer technique is character has emotional problems. Next scene, we see him on the bus. He's sitting behind the girl and her mother. He makes faces at the little girl to make her laugh. And there's 2 there stacked on top of each other. Character has an endearing trait or eccentricity. And character likes children. So if you see a character who likes children, you instantly go, I like them. So you're already hearing so many of these
Right,
piled on
it's-
top.
yeah.
We're like 7 minutes in. Same scene. The mother tells him to stop. He can't stop laughing. Everyone on the bus stares at him, and he hands her a card that's like this meta thing about the movie.
Right,
like,
right. Right.
that says he has a condition that makes him laugh uncontrollably in situations where he shouldn't. So this rooting influencer technique is character confesses a humiliation, which is it's a very humiliating moment.
Right.
Next scene, we see him walking toward his apartment. He's sad. He's amongst the downtrodden and disenfranchised. So character gets by with little to nothing. That's bootstraps. Next scene, we see him in the shitty apartment building. He opens the mailbox. There's no mail. This rooting influencer technique, my judge is that character has no one. Like, he's lonely, even though he's got his mother. Next scene, we see him on the elevator. It's about to close, and he stops it from closing to let the girl in. So coming to a person's aid, doing a kind deed for another person. That's a rooting influencer technique. Right. He has an exchange with Sophie and her little girl that ends with them smiling at each other. That's another character likes children. Next scene, we see him in his rundown apartment taking care of his sick mom. Character is loyal to his family. His or her family. That's another rooting influencer technique. So next scene, we see him alone in his apartment working on jokes. Once again, he's chasing a higher purpose.
Right,
Gets us invested. We see the phrase, the worst part about having a mental illness is people expect you to act like you don't. Character has insecurities. So that's 15 minutes.
And
that's
that
15.
clever too.
It's clever too.
Yeah.
15 pages. 19 rooting influencers.
And all those rooting influencers are terms that are used.
That this guy has 40 of them.
Okay.
And those are all things that
terms.
he says are ways to get you to like somebody, and they piled on 19 in the first 15 pages. I mean, it's never ending. It's fucking
hence why it feels heavy-handed.
Right.
Yeah.
It feels heavy-handed, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
I think it works.
I think it generally does work. Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of like harumphing at the pain. I was just like, Jesus Christ. I found myself saying that from scene to scene.
Well, what did you said something earlier, Jamie, before we started recording, where I thought was about these things and the empathy and everything, but you said something specific where I was like, we have so much empathy for this guy, but also it's apparent, even up to this point, that he's not somebody you would want in your life.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, there's empathy there, but it's not something that you would want to actually like be the one to step in.
Yeah, and that's the key with these characters. Like, that's why likable is the wrong term.
He's not likable.
He's not likable.
He's almost irritating.
Yeah, but you still root for him, and you still want him to do better and things like that for all the reasons that
right.
you've outlined.
And those techniques, that's a great example of how they don't have to be quote unquote likable. It's not about liking them, it's about rooting for them.
Right. And this is why you can have stories about scoundrels and thieves and all kinds of stuff that maybe you don't like. And in those cases maybe you do like.
I was going to say that there's a lot of great protagonists that are awful that we like. You'd want to hang out with Tony Soprano.
There's a certain,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that kind of thing. Like he's
and
not.
I bet you if you go into any scene in The Sopranos and track these techniques, they're there, amidst the darkness.
Well, right. Now, I'm not saying, and also I just want to make clear that I'm not saying you'd want to hang out with him because he's a bad person, but I'm saying like as a social being,
yes,
he seems cool. Whereas Arthur Fleck is like, I don't want to spend 1 minute in a room with him, which has also got to be one of those things. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you realize I don't even want to be with him.
Right. Well, excluded outsider.
That gives me empathy for him because I'm like, dude, I don't even want to give you my time.
Yeah.
So
So
these things also remind me. They're very similar to like the save the cat idea, which is save the cat scenes for the Blake Snyder book. I mean, that's what the book is called, but it's really just one notion of having a scene where somebody saves a cat or does something human.
That's what it's named after. Yeah.
This was like 19. What he just said was 19 of those.
In some ways, the ones that really stick out to me are like him with the kids, trying to make the kids smile because you're like, well, at least he's weird and all, but kids like him.
He genuinely,
he wants to make a kid happy.
Yeah,
he kind of gets something, and they actually see him more in a positive. The kids seem to see him more in a positive level, like, where the adults are the one that look at him weird.
Yep.
So there's
definitely.
And we'll get to theme in a bit, but I feel like him with the kids has kind of it's like an antithesis to the actual supposed themes of the bullying themes of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the fact that he loves kids and he wants to endear them and calm them and be, make them laugh.
Yeah, and I think
It
there's
feels like
something...
the opposite of bullying. I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah,
And
right.
even I thought there was something interesting in the way that he was the first people we see him get beat by are children, and then he ends up defending them.
Well,
he's like, they're just being kids, and
there's also that thing he says, and I can't remember the exact line, but he says, "My mother always said, I'm here to put."
Yeah.
What is it? I don't know
He
exactly.
says,
Did you guys read that as a line that was written to kind of be like a Forrest Gump throwback? When he said that, the first thing I was like, are they trying to turn him into a Forrest Gump?
My
No, I
mama
think it's
always
just
said.
Empathy, though.
I imagine her
empathetic
saying
characters,
that.
though.
He says, my mother says I was put here to spread joy and laughter.
Right. And the fact that
That's what he believes his purpose is.
he's so innocent that he's naive enough to think that he's almost childlike in his own way.
That's a good point.
That's a good
Yes.
point.
That
It's-
is not something as someone who has a sound, mature mind believes.
No.
You really got to give it to the movie for having a direct focus on your emotions right out of the gate.
Yeah.
This is like emotional
15
terrorism,
pages
if you
of
wanna-
it,
You
man.
want to bring that word into it.
And it
Yeah.
keeps going. I just felt like it was overkill. I felt like even what I just did was overkill. But I felt like it was overkill to go anymore. But the first act is just piled on with those. It just keeps going with those rooting influences.
It is like an auteurist movie, though.
Yeah,
so I
yeah.
think it was almost intentional. to be
Absolutely. It was
just over
all
the
of that.
top
I mean, all
empathy.
of those were choices to get you to root for him, for
Right.
sure.
Yeah.
And going off of what Jamie said with the Blake stuff, something we haven't talked about much. We're big, for those of you who haven't listened before, we like Blake Snyder stuff. Tough shit.
The cheeseburgers.
That we write about
Cheeseburger
cheeseburgers,
movies.
and Blake teaches how to do cheeseburgers.
Because you can talk about those movies.
Yes.
Other movies, yeah, if they
Oddly,
don't do
this has a lot of cheeseburger
It
stuff
does.
in it.
Yeah.
That's the weird twist of this movie. For all I tried to sneak this movie in. It's very accessible.
I felt like it was like a comic book movie.
It's kind of like, okay, I'm saying this not as an insult, but it's kind of like Walmart's art house section.
Yes.
That's
Do you know what I mean?
perfect.
It's like for that. It's
yes.
what it is. Yeah.
Yes.
It's my mom would understand. You know what I mean?
Yes.
She would
Oh,
get this.
yeah.
It's like
People that
yeah.
want a deeper experience but don't want to work too hard, at it.
for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily an insult.
Not
not
at
an
all.
insult.
No,
not an
really.
insult. That's craft.
Yeah.
That's craft.
I think though that it would repel some people who are looking for something deeper.
Yes, yeah.
That would.
Or
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? Like,
who
they'd be
didn't want
almost
it spelled out.
They'd be almost insulted.
A
Like
lot
how
of the
it's-
art house crowd would like
How dare you think
do-
this is deep?
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Anyway.
So Blake talks about something in his book called "The 6 Things That Need Fixing," and we haven't talked.
We've
about
never
this.
talked about that.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is or remember what this is. So
Okay.
please enlighten me and the listeners.
Do you want to go?
It's funny because it's something that I always reference, but I'm not sure exactly what he says about it. So I'll tell you what I remember. But basically, it's just those 6. It's as simple as it sounds. It's 6 things that come up in the setup that somebody in their life need to change, or otherwise they're gonna quote unquote die, or their life they're not gonna move forward. Some horrible things.
The Earth's gonna explode.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
and it's usually more related to their personal life than to like the world stakes or something like
Yep.
that. These are more the setup kind of things.
So it's like imagine like a word tree, and then the center is the character's like inner problem, right?
Yeah.
And these are all sort of grown around that, and they're connected to that. It's and here's the thing:
So
you said
they're not
you
exactly goals. They're kind of
Well, they usually do end up being what the
goals.
subplots are about.
Right.
The subplots are usually grown around these,
Mhm.
and so I'm gonna.
Especially in this movie.
Oh, my
Yo,
God,
yeah.
The bad way to do this, and this movie doesn't do it this way at all, is what I see a lot is one of two things. Instead of like, and we're saying 6 things that need fixing because what Blake says is the great movies have around 5 or 6 in their setup for the character to deal with over the course of the story. You don't have to have 6, but it makes it for a richer experience, right? Most scripts will have one of two things. They'll just have one thing that needs fixing, and that's just the A story problem. Like, I got to get Back to the Future and nothing else.
I need a new leg.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing will be we don't learn about these things that need fixing until like halfway through the movie. All of a sudden, all these problems in the character's world start surfacing way late into the story. It's like we learn that they have a peanut allergy 50 minutes in, and then they get a peanut allergy attack on page 56, and we've never heard about this like life-altering illness they've had the entire time. So it reframes the character, and it confuses and it muddies it all.
To set up some payoffs thing a little bit too.
Yeah, but the most important thing is this stuff has to happen in the first act. If you start piling it on in the second act, it doesn't work. It like detracts from what you're trying to do. So they usually, this is direct from Blake's book.
Okay.
They usually are around 5 different things.
Okay.
Changes in attractiveness or personality, strained personal relationships. Both of these are in Joker. Not being entrusted with responsibility, or a person not being able to handle responsibility.
That's
also in the Joker. Yeah. Being invisible to people.
It's like the fucking movie. It's the whole movie.
That is Joker.
That's Joker, right.
Others don't believe in you, or you've given up on yourself. So, I mean, Joker, the whole
he lost his
first
job.
act
Nobody thinks he can do anything.
All those rooting influencers are like branched around those 6 things, those things that need fixing. And I feel like it fits all of that to a T, man. Like I was watching this movie, I was like, this is the six things that need fixing the movie.
So what you're saying is basically like the most art house auteurist DC movie is still like this incredibly like consumable
commercially constructed entity.
That's why if you compare it, because obviously I think it most compares to Taxi Driver in my mind.
Yeah.
And Taxi Driver, I don't think you really get a lot of rooting influences. They kind of leave it up to you whether or not you want to like that character or not. You know, it's kind of like, do you like this person?
And if we're comparing it to Taxi Driver, which obviously it's there.
Yeah.
There's way less empathy. All those things that you listed, Jimmy, way less for Travis Bickle. I feel like he's much less.
He's very
likable.
In fact,
he is.
Yeah, he's very vague.
Yeah.
The things he's saying about society are actually distasteful. You know, he's hating on everything and stuff like that.
But there is empathy there.
There's empathy, but it's different.
Less. Yeah, it's way less. Yeah.
He feels like he has power. Travis Bickle feels like he has
it's a way
power,
different take on these personal problems.
Right. Strangely, it's
which I think this is more of an aesthetic homage. It's not
character
homage.
Yeah.
But
right.
I think the reason I think it most compares though is plot wise, if you want to call it that, it's similarly structured.
In the rise.
That's the part I feel it's
like the fall. And
Travis Bickle famously says, "I'm God's lonely man." You could apply that to Joker.
Absolutely.
Totally. But I don't feel like they're the same. They don't want the same thing, and they don't do the same thing.
Well, I think they're almost inverses of each other's
they
characters.
Are. Totally.
Yeah. On one hand, Travis Bickle can relate to Sybil Shepherd and kind of like she likes him. You know? Where this character really doesn't have that.
He couldn't even get a date if he tried.
It's like you look at it, and on the flip side, we wish Travis Bickle didn't have his internal monologue, but this character's internal monologue is about bringing smiles to people and happy. You know what I mean?
It's also
it's a different. They're like inverted.
If you want to talk about the comparison, I feel like Joker in this movie gets what Travis Bickle wants.
So, and I'm saving. I read a Paul Schrader interview with Taxi Driver. I wasn't looking for it. It popped up probably algorithm wise because I was looking up Joker stuff.
People have pretty much.
And it's an old interview from Creative Screenwriting, and he talks about the construction of Travis Bickle, and I'll bring it up when we talk about later in the theme.
Okay.
We'll revisit this because I feel like it's a better surprise what Paul Schrader said about Travis Bickle.
You guys already see what I was going to say.
Yeah,
The two, but they don't. One gets what the other one wants,
and that's what I want to talk about.
Right. Yeah.
Specifically, what about Paul Schrader said, what his intent was.
The only reason I think that's important to bring up is because I saw several reviews say that this movie doesn't understand Taxi Driver. And I'm like, I don't think it's trying to be Taxi Driver.
No, not at all.
Which is weird to me that's the criticism I'm seeing. Like, it looks kind of like it.
It's just the time period
and
the
time
aesthetics.
Period and it looks kind of like it, but it's not.
But they're motivated by the time period that it takes place.
Yeah. So the biggest thing we can talk about is what you've already kind of touched on is first acts.
Yeah.
Long first acts.
Yeah, this is a weird movie in general, structure-wise.
Yeah.
And I think, I hate to bring up Taxi Driver again, but Taxi Driver is a weird movie structure-wise, too.
Yeah.
That's where I really see the comparison between the two movies. They deliver different things, but they kind of use some of the same methodology, structure-wise, to get there.
I agree.
So, like, this movie I'd almost describe, we've talked about it before, I bring it up a lot, the Robert McGee triangle, arch plot, mini plot, anti-plot.
Give us a quick rundown.
Sure. At the top of that, the arch plot's the cheeseburger. It's goals. Heroes with goals. There's an obstacle in the way. There's stakes. There's clear motivation. There's cause effect from scene to scene.
Open and closed loops.
Open and closed.
That's
loops.
like your Back to the Future.
Yep.
Back to the Future.
Prototypical Hollywood
Galaxy Quest,
movie.
Back to the Future.
All Pixar movies.
Yeah,
All-
Pixar.
For the most part, all Marvel movies.
Yeah.
But not now all DC movies.
Ooh. Woo! Yeah, right.
So anti-plot is your surreal stuff. So that's the David Lynch territory. And we don't see a lot of those, especially on this show. I'm sure there are a lot of them in weird in art film kind of contexts and stuff.
Yeah.
And there are things that touch it.
They aren't blockbusters.
They're not blockbusters.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even think, aside from the David Lynch ones and maybe some like Fellini stuff and things, I can't even think of ones that rise.
Terrence Malick, maybe, or something.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So then on the other side, you have mini plot. And by the way, this is a spectrum, so things fall various levels of
all
it.
over the place.
So like a movie like Mandy might fall in the middle or something,
Yeah,
with all the weird kind of stuff. So mini plots tend to be non-cause effect. Characters have loose goals. They can be day in a life. Random scenes can happen.
Yeah.
It just feels like we're kind of filming life and then
There's no
cutting out the boring
momentum.
What's a good
parts.
example of that?
Once Upon a Time in America might be an example.
What
of
about
that.
something like
And
Clerks?
Clerks could be. Clerks has a little bit of plot, and that's the
Yeah.
thing about mini
But it's
plots.
day in the life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mini
Yeah.
plots are like that. Mini plots, they have a little bit of plot, and they show sparks of plot at various times.
They pick it up and leave it.
They pick it up and
and
leave it. Pick it up. It might not satisfy you. They might
How
not
about this?
pay off
Dazed and
things.
Confused. That might be better.
Dazed and Confused, definitely.
That's
That
great.
does- the plot is not.
Great,
it's barely
great,
there. Right.
great. Per-
Yeah.
A lot of your Sundance movies, like I can think of stuff like Lady Bird recently, or
Yeah, right,
something
right.
like that. There are tons of movies that are very popular. that have mini
Character
plots.
time period pieces really fit.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Yeah, like anything like that.
Like this.
Yeah. Right. Yes. Right.
And the reason I'm leaning toward, and I'd like to hear what you guys think. I'm leaning toward putting this one is because I can't really pick a clear photographable goal for this movie.
Overall, by Story's End.
he has many goals.
Yeah.
And it almost seems like the
Yeah.
better if his goal. Let's say
Jimmy
so
always says visible goals.
Visible
and it's
goal.
like I don't think he has one.
So,
yeah.
King of Comedy, actually, to do the other one that this gets compared to, does have a visible goal. The King
Robert De Niro wants to be on the show.
He wants to be on the show. So by the end, guess what? Third act, he's on the show. We can see that he made the show.
You could argue that Arthur wants.
It's
to-
not an expressed goal he's working towards.
Well, he does have a very clear vision of him being pulled
Yeah,
onto
that's
the
true.
show.
But he's in the audience.
I think, though, like we said, goals come and go, and
Yeah.
it is a goal at a time.
Absolutely.
But
it's like when he's watching the show. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
It sure would be nice to be
But he's
on
not like,
that show.
Mom, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna
Yes.
get on that show.
in a
Great.
clear cheeseburger
Right,
movie,
right.
you would say this is what the movie's about. You'd say it's about a guy with a mental disorder who wants to be on the Tonight Show, and
Yeah.
and we
Right,
couldn't
right.
say that about this
No,
necessarily.
no.
That becomes a goal of his,
Yeah.
but it also isn't totally his end game.
Also, you could
No.
argue that his opening dream sequence was more just about him being seen.
Yep.
It wasn't about the show
It's
itself.
about someone caring.
It was about somebody carrying it. I don't think it had anything to do with just specifically the show.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So my take on this movie is it falls more in that mini plot camp where we're sort of
Definitely.
Yeah, I agree.
almost like
I
a
agree.
documentary of a guy's
The
descent.
least interesting path of us all agreeing.
Yeah. It's kind of a documentary of a guy's descent into madness sort
Yeah.
of thing. And
Yeah.
and it picks and chooses what parts it's going to show. And the thing that makes this more cheeseburger than your standard Sundance thing is it just does a great job of executing all the storylines. There's
Mhm.
a lot of things to keep our attention and a lot of like mini goals along the way. There's
of
lots of mini goals.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to me, the structure talk starts with that because a lot of these mini plot movies are harder to figure out what's act one, where does act one end?
Where's the lock in? Where's anything? Right.
The lock in usually happens in the lock in, which we talked about before. which is kind of this moment where the hero, goal, obstacle, and stakes are all established, and the hero has a mission. Does he have a mission at some point?
So
What do you think?
Well, if I had,
This
yeah, I know. If I had to pick a lock-in,
Mhm.
I guess it would be his first murders.
Absolutely.
that's what
I mean,
I
that
think
just
that's
seems
the end of
obvious.
Act
That's what I
One.
go to.
Because that's when he first. I feel dumb saying it's when he first feels like the Joker or what he's becoming. That's when a mission or like, okay, I like that. I'm gonna keep pursuing that, but there's no definable. And no moment do I think that Arthur has like a definable goal
No,
in
I
the
agree
end
with
game
you.
of all of
No,
this.
I'd agree with
another
you.
way
You know?
to another way to look at it though is, when does the ordinary world become a new world?
And that's the upside down world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I go. That's what my. And this is a cheeseburger. I'm looking at this from a cheeseburger standpoint. But
we
I
say
think
cheeseburger too. Like we mean like
like
blockbuster,
blockbuster movies.
four
McDonald's.
quadrant movies.
Yeah,
that
everybody
we
loves
generally
cheeseburgers.
talk about on
I
this
know.
podcast.
We say cheeseburgers.
Because who
so
knows,
much,
somebody's
yeah.
picking this up for the first time.
Right.
Everybody loves cheeseburgers, but
Save the
something
cat
like,
blockbusters. That's what we're talking
something like eating eel might be a
about.
Often it.
I only eat turkey burgers. So
This
go ahead.
movie is an eel.
Yeah.
It often with the mini plot also that I go with the before world, what the character's life was before, upside down world, the circus mirror version of their life where they're encountering things that they've never encountered before, and then the synthesis, the new world. Now that they've learned all the things that they've learned.
So Act 1, 2,
So,
and 3.
yes. So before world to me is clear, like you said, like you guys said, it ends when he shoots those people, because now all of a sudden people are paying attention to him. His mission is sort of becomes self-discovery, figuring out who he really is. All of that is born out of the actions he took in that moment where he like shoots somebody.
Right.
So I think it's very clear, and that's why I was wanted to say
It's easy. Yeah.
it's
definable.
easy.
Yeah.
It's a long Act 1, but talking about all those things.
Do you know how long that was?
Yeah, so in the script it's 37 pages, and I timed it the second time because it was one of the reasons I went back. I just wanted to see how long the first act was.
Okay.
It's 42 minutes when he shoots those guys.
Until the
till
second
the
world.
upside down world, the before world ends. But we saw all the efforts made to set up all those reasons to root for him, and it feels like it's extra long because they wanted to take an extra long time piling on all that rooting influence. Like you take some of that away, maybe the rest of the movie doesn't work.
Mhm. Yeah.
And this movie seems like a collection of B stories, almost like
Yes.
you could say the dating story,
Yep.
his mother's story, the stand-up comedy story,
Yep.
maybe even his workplace kind of story.
Definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. And,
Yeah.
and that one has a great ending.
the cops hunting him story.
Yes.
So it's like none of those necessarily outweigh the others. Like
Right.
it's not like this is the movie where he tries to have a relationship, or
Right.
this is the movie
That
where
kind
he
of
tries
goes
to
with
stand
your
up.
mini plots.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
It's
yeah.
it's several different stories, but to do that, you need an Act 1 that sets up every single one of those stories.
Yep.
And puts them in their starting.
Puts them
place.
into motion.
Because
Yeah.
to do that, you need the character being in those is the most important thing.
And
That's right.
That's how it sells.
exactly.
It. Right.
And the climactic moment that shifts us into where all of those things are going to come undone is him shooting those people. Right. So yeah, it's another example, because I feel like we're having these common things now on these Jurassic Park 42 minutes, Demolition Man we just talked about 38 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, these movies with these long Act 1s, they work.
Yeah.
They work. They work great.
And the suggested thing normally, what's like
25%
25
is the
25 minutes out of 100.
so these are generally going to almost 20 minutes over.
yes.
Now, on the flip side of that, most of these movies, this one included, is probably 2 hours.
Yeah, it's 120 minutes. So it's more
you
of a
mean like
percentage, 25%.
25%.
I hate that so much. People and
You mean you hate the fact that people think it's a
well,
rule?
it's detrimental, and what happens is people who are just starting out, and I see it all the time. I'm like, I'll be working on a script, and sure enough, that end of Act 1 happens on page 25, and it shouldn't have happened on 25. It needed more time, based on what the writer was trying to do. So I like talking about this because I want to encourage people to get away from that.
It's been a while since I've read a lot of amateur scripts, But the reason I think it's gotten like that is because when I used to read amateur scripts, I'm sure you encountered this a lot too, is the first act break didn't come to page 50 or 60 or 70. You know, is like people didn't know how to start their story and they didn't realize they were supposed to. So you'd read this long story that went to page 50 or 60 and you'd still be asking yourself on page 50, doesn't sound like you get a lot of this.
I don't.
I used to, when I would read scripts, I would always get the thing where I was on page 50 and I was like, what is this story about? And I'd be on page 50. For whatever reason, you're not getting those.
No, you know what I'm getting?
Yeah.
I'm getting no things that need fixing. So I'm getting
they
completely skip over the things that need fixing, and we get right into, and that's great. Like, we want to get into the story, and I applaud that, and I always do applaud it. Like, great. It's like moving. People are generally, in my experience, and to put it in perspective, I read about 40 pages a day, every day, 5 days a week of amateur scripts. That is my living. That is my life. So I encounter poorly done. I have very talented clients, but I encounter a lot of this. And mainly what I see is not the 50-page end of Act 1. I see end of Act 1 is like page 15 or page 20.
What you're saying is it's coming at the sacrifice of character.
Absolutely.
That's what you're saying.
There's nothing explored beyond the A story, the main goal, get the treasure on the island. You know,
and it's like great movies are about characters.
There's so much more that you could do.
Right.
It's so interesting though, because I had, like I said, back when I used to read a lot of scripts, which goes back probably early 2000s. I it was the exact opposite. It was that my most common note was, hey, you know, page 70, that should be on page 25. Cut the rest. That was my most common. I wonder if Save the Cat's working in some ways. Maybe
I was going to suggest it was more the fact of the industry and what the consumer is consuming now.
Could be.
You think that might be
the attention span is different, and the writers that are sending me stuff are very conditioned very differently maybe than the writers who you were reading when you were at a point where you were reading amateur scripts.
Mine were probably coming from the novel world. They were probably character driven. Maybe yours are now coming from something that more plot driven as far as the instruction goes, and they're just trying to get to the interesing thing quicker.
They
haven't figured out the character story. And
stuff,
maybe.
So it's just I hammer down this point about these long act ones, man. Look at these movies. Look at these awesome movies that don't change until they don't hit us into the main story for 40 pages. But you know what? We know everything about that character's world before they start trying to solve the problem. And that makes you invested.
So it's an act one that's basically like a movie before the movie
Absolutely.
starts. That's what it is.
Yes,
right. Yeah.
And it's crucial. And it's like, you know, what are they like? What are their problems like at work? What are their problems like at home? What are their problems like in the social situation? What do they do for fun? Oh, nothing? Well, that's a problem. Like, you know, I read scripts every day that contain none of these. So I'm applauding this movie for taking 42 minutes of the movie before we start getting to the Joker, quote unquote, story, you know?
And that's all, you know, and honestly, the reactions I've seen are the first part's boring.
Oh my god.
I've seen so many of that. And I'm not saying that people how to feel. It's just funny that we're talking about this.
It's my favorite part of the movie. The first act is, to me, the best part of the movie.
I think there's a danger in doing it in that first acts usually don't have the conflict yet. So you have to you have to find
lock-in and everything.
You have to find other ways to have tension.
Exactly.
There has to be tension somehow. So
that's where the craft comes in.
That's where the craft comes in. And you have to find other ways to make things interesting. So his job at this weird clown dispatcher, I don't know. I don't quite understand what that thing was.
It's Taxi if they were clowns.
Yeah, it's like what?
I kind of liked that. I was like, is that a business where they dispatch clowns?
Yeah, but at least it's interesting. I don't know.
I was just like, I'm just going with it. I have no fucking clue what this is.
That was like the slight touch of comic book.
That's the comic book, right?
And I was like, I can forgive this.
That's a Killing Joke scenario.
You could see that in a comic book.
Right. I was like, if this wasn't a comic movie, I would be like, what is going on?
Yeah,
but I was like, okay, fine. They're a clown dispatcher.
It's a clown pimp or something. I don't know what he was.
I definitely was like, what is going on? What is happening?
The city needs clowns.
And then when he got fired, I was like, can he just do this out of his house? But anyway. How many clowns have a dispatcher? He's probably taking 10%. It's not a job you want. Anyway,
it's fine. Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Like the boss is getting inundated with complaints because business is so booming. Like,
right.
This is like my 8th complaint this week. Like, how?
But him him getting
So
beat
weird.
up, him getting in these weird conflicts on the bus, all that stuff is adding tension to the script. It's adding interest. So you have to find those things. That's the danger of these long act ones, is when there's no conflict and stuff. You have to find other ways to add tension to the script.
I think under a microscope, it's what everything we're saying, everything you guys are saying is absolutely true. But I can see how people who aren't used to ingesting stuff like that would just see it as a meandering nothing.
Get to the story.
Right. 'Cause
Yes.
So a lot of people are looking for stories. So you got to find a way.
There's a happy medium.
There's a happy medium there.
absolutely.
I wasn't bored by the first act at all.
Is anyone bored by Jurassic Park for the first 42 minutes? Absolutely
No,
fucking not.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So if you do it right,
Right. That's not something I've ever heard anyone say.
yeah.
It's the
Oh my
first act
God,
of
the
Jurassic
first act
Park.
of Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
Jesus
right.
Christ.
Get to the point. Right. But I think that also that brings us, because we're talking about the buildup of Arthur. We're going to talk about the big thing. I think that with this movie is talk about unreliable narrators versus dishonest protagonists.
Yes, I brought it up on purpose.
Explain that second half to me, Jimmy.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know what
Okay.
you mean.
Okay. I think one of the reasons people are getting frustrated with the labeling of this movie, this is as unreliable narrator, because
Which is a term that exists.
it's a term, it's a common term.
It's a common term, right?
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
a common used in many famous novels. Like it's
The Usual Suspects, I think. might have
see,
had one
so
or something.
that's what I want to talk about that, because I even though he's an
Okay.
unreliable narrator, he's fucking lucid. Like he's
I was
playing
gonna say,
fast
that's what
and
you're gonna
loose with
say.
the truth, and I think that Joker doesn't know what's real and what's not in the end. We shouldn't talk theories, but like for instance, Fight Club.
With this movie, I
Tyler
think you can-
Durden, the narrator, Edward Norton's character, he doesn't know that he's unreliable. Like the entire time, he's just as confused about what's happening as the audience is for the entire time. He's never lying to us. American Psycho.
I was just about to say American
Patrick
Psycho.
Bateman is never we're never shown something that he doesn't believe is real. It's never a lying to the audience, deceiving.
It's only the phone call at the end where we're like, "Oh, was that not real?"
Right. There's
Yeah,
no
there's no-
deception going on for the people, the audience watching, and the people in the story.
It's a POV question.
It's a POV
So,
question. In
to
Usual
clarify it,
Suspects, the
okay.
entire thing is a lie on purpose, and we're meant to be deceived. So it's a completely different experience all around.
I get what you're saying. So you're saying
Yes.
Arthur Fleck is not like we're experiencing the world as he believes
he
he's
believes
experiencing it.
his rise.
He is not trying actively to deceive us or anyone else in the
I don't
movie.
believe so.
No, I think I'm agreeing. I actually believe
Yes.
what you're saying.
Beautiful Mind would be another example.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Unreliable narrator.
Right.
You don't know if he's really talking to his wife or not.
Right.
Neither does he.
Yeah. I agree. I don't think Arthur has a grip
Whereas
on
if-
what is actually going on.
Whereas
Yeah.
if Russell Crowe was like talking to his wife, and then like you find out like all of his like testimony was he was just bullshit,
Mhm.
on purpose,
Right.
and you pull the rug out on the audience, and he's pulling the rug out on everyone around him. So
Right.
that's a difference. I think there is a difference, and I think it informs everything in the movie.
So you're saying that you think people are misconstruing this as the Joker?
Dishonest protagonist.
You're saying they're construing it as he's like trying to play us like a fiddle,
And
but he's
there's-
actually not.
And they're getting pissed off at leaving the experience because they feel cheated and lied to. They're frustrated. The people I see frustrated by the label of unreliable narrator is like, oh fuck that. That means everything I saw was nothing. Like that's a lie. Like, and I think that's because they are attaching it to the
it's like
usual
Vanilla Sky,
suspects.
man.
That
it's just
doesn't-
a dream.
Yeah, that doesn't. I haven't really heard these. I saw. you
I've
talking
seen
about
some.
those.
Yeah.
But yeah, it
I
doesn't
sent
make
you
sense.
guys one.
This-
Yeah.
So
This is a movie that's purely showing us the POV of a character, and when he finds out that it's not real, is when we find out it's not
Yes.
real. That's the difference.
It's there. They made that
Although-
decision. Yeah.
I guessed it pretty early on. Like I was like,
I
she's not
mean-
there.
It seemed crazy that she would be into
I
him.
know. It's like, but
if she was into him, I would have probably hated the movie. I would have been like, this is
Bullshit.
Yeah, I
Should've
think
never
that's
done. No,
the
but-
second he walks
so-
in and makes out with her with
Yeah.
no in between.
Right.
I was like, either this is the worst movie or something we're gonna find out about.
So,
this. You know, it
I was
doesn't make
I've thought long and hard about that whole arc, that little mini plot there,
sense.
and I was like, it's so heavy-handed and obvious that she's not there. I'm thinking that we're supposed to know that even before the reveal. You know what I mean? Like they've
Mhm.
spent 40-some minutes.
I think you're supposed to know
and it's like I think that the movie actually is saying
right then and
something's
there.
not right, and you know it isn't.
Right then and there.
It's not. Yeah, like the reveal isn't supposed to be this giant thing. It's
They're
just like,
planting the intrigue about why this doesn't
We're
feel
ahead of
right.
Arthur.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then they answer it with the reveal specifically around her. That's totally
I also think that's pretty much saying that all bets are off.
right.
You might be watching nothing.
But I
Yeah.
go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah,
My-
sorry.
my-
yeah,
my-
go ahead.
My theory is she's Catwoman. No,
Fine. Sassy Beats is Catwoman. Sure.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So yeah, I think that there's a difference. Like Memento, he doesn't know he's lying to. So he's not lying to the audience. He is deceptive, but the character is experiencing like every situation, and he has no fucking clue
Also,
what's going on.
Everything we talked about with the first long act, the character that was constructed here is not dishonest. He's not a dishonest
No,
character.
He's not.
Which is, I mean,
That's something that's great about him.
it's something to talk about in another podcast with
honest
the
to a
Joker
fault.
itself. But he doesn't. He's weirdly like good in a lot of ways.
yeah.
Yes.
It's like,
Yeah.
there's
Yes.
a purity
There's
to
a
him.
purity and
It
in
doesn't make-
child,
yeah.
like you said, a
Mhm.
child. Jamie said, child. He's childlike in that way.
He's the guy here to put sunshine in the world or whatever
Yeah,
his mother says.
sunshine, and
It's like
smiles and
His
joy.
intentions are good.
Yeah. What is the
Just
road?
Road to hell, man. He's just paving it with bad.
He was put here to spread joy and laughter.
Right.
Yeah. And I think he truly believes that.
I think so
Yeah.
too.
So you're saying that you think people are
I think
misconstruing it
people
as
are
like he's actively attacking
ye-
me
Are
by
yeah,
deceiving
you
me.
deceived me.
Right.
The whole thing was a lie on purpose. Fuck you, filmmakers, storytellers, and
Yeah.
I don't think that's what this is
Right.
at all. And I think there is a difference.
It's
And-
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought it was an interesting topic to talk about.
I never
But
thought about
maybe-
I never heard dishonest protagonist.
Yeah, I don't
so
think it's
never-
a common thing, but I've heard it a couple times and I align with it. I like it. I use it when I'm dealing with a story, a client story that's a unreliable narrator who doesn't know what the fuck's going on. And then I have a character who's lying about their goal the whole time and you find out it's a different goal. Like in this movie, the people I'm talking about who are not receiving this well are assuming that Joker's goal in the end
was
the whole
to do
time
that
was
stuff.
to lie about the whole thing. And,
No.
and I don't think that's
We're
the
gonna get
case.
to that, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
he didn't really have a goal.
Right.
He was just
He's just crazy.
taking it out on his bullies, and he has no clue what's happening.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
he's not like
I don't think there's a plan at all. It's
there's not a
just-
decep- there's no
there's no
there's
deception.
not a plan of deception. Like
Absolutely not.
if
Yeah.
you even want to talk about that, like he get his end goal where he actually shoots Murray in the
It's not his
head.
goal.
He was asked to be on the show.
Yeah.
Right.
Like he was like he didn't even do anything. It's all passive. It's like passive goals, right? He passively gets things done,
Well, yeah.
right?
Were you going somewhere else? With
No,
that,
no,
or-
go ahead.
Oh, no, no,
You
no.
think I was making a
I
transition?
thought you were continuing to just go
Oh,
on that
I wrote.
point.
Okay, so on this point, I was gonna say like, we talk about dream logic a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you think that's kind of on display in this movie? In a bit,
I don't really feel it too
You don't feel
much.
too much?
Not too much. What points in particular?
I think the second time there was some dream logic, and that's why I want it. We can talk that we can
Well, where-
in the
where are you getting it
coincidence.
from? Where are
I'm
you
talking
getting it
about
from?
the
Yeah.
coincidence
Ah.
factor.
that's kind of what I was
I
thinking
want
too.
to figure out with you guys why it works.
So what coincidences in particular?
There's 11 of them.
Okay.
It's like Joker by the numbers with Jimmy George.
Yeah, you better fucking believe it.
We need an infographic.
Okay.
Yeah, seriously.
The ones that people are gonna scoff at, but they are coincidences, are before the story starts.
If we disagree, we'll tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
His mom just
I'll
so
scoff.
happens to be his mom. Number one, it's the big one. It's in the construction. Please do scoff. I love it. I'll just laugh like the Joker.
Okay.
His mom just so happens to be a former employee of Thomas Wayne. How convenient for this whole telling of the story that he will.
I think that's
be.
okay.
Okay.
Because it's not like they know they're in a Batman
Yeah.
world.
Right.
That's okay.
That's
Okay.
what pulls him into the Thomas Wayne into the story, is they are related.
It is an
So
origin
is that
story.
the one
Batman
that
does not.
standard in
I
a drama
don't-
would be forgivable.
See, I don't think
Yes.
so. I don't think that's a coincidence as
Okay.
much. I think
No, it's not a coincidence.
That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to debate these.
No,
I
it is-
purposely brought this up.
That is not a
I
coincidence.
agree with
Okay.
Bob. I
Yeah,
think the
that
only
is
reason
not.
it feels like a coincidence
It's
is
'cause we
because
know it's a
the
Batman.
Okay.
universe.
But
Yeah.
this is an origin story. Batman doesn't exist yet. You can do whatever to get
Okay.
those two together,
So it's not.
and that does not count
Okay,
as a
so
coincidence.
down
Yeah,
to
yeah.
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Down to 10.
Still a 10.
The
We're going to
pe-
rebut them.
No, this is great.
Take them down.
I
Take-
object.
The Jimmy George machine's
Um,
coming down.
The people he shoots just so happen to work for Thomas Wayne. This shooting just so happens.
That's fine. I think,
think
there's
that's
order
a
there.
coincidence.
Yeah.
That's a
I-
coincidence.
Because
I
Thomas
think-
Wayne has been introduced, and then he happens to kill people,
Yeah.
So
I think
that's a coincidence.
coincidence.
and his
Okay.
mom. Yeah,
I think
right.
that might be the one.
The one?
The one.
Okay.
That's my gut.
His shooting just so happens to create a social movement.
I think that's cause effect.
that's cause effect.
Mm,
Yeah.
he wasn't trying to make it cause effect.
Well, that's part of the.
It's convenient for all the things that need to happen. It just so happens to
I
create a
disagree.
social
Yeah.
movement. That's my biggest one. I don't
I-
buy it at all.
Yeah,
It's
I don't-
bullshit.
That he creates a social movement.
Yeah,
I don't think we're.
because he shot people. So
Well, he shot 3 people.
I know I've
that
seen it
were-
twice, and I was trying to make it work. That for me is the big one. That
I
I don't
think
buy.
that-
Yeah, I don't see it. I object to that one.
Yeah, okay.
Except-
I don't
we're
think
down
that's a
to-
coincidence.
I agree with
But
one.
I would like
One.
to talk about that more later.
We
Okay.
can vote.
Okay.
Yeah.
When he shows up at Wayne Mansion's gate, Bruce Wayne just so happens to be there, right in front of him, so that he can threaten him and hold him by the throat if he wants to. Just so happens
I
to
don't
be
know,
there.
man, because the thing we already said wasn't a coincidence got him to the gate, and the fact that the kid is there. I mean, whatever.
If I can put the word conveniently before the event, then
It's
to me it's a
convenient.
coincidence.
I think it's convenient.
How convenient that I go to Wayne Mansion and Bruce Wayne is right there in front of me. Boy,
I don't think
that
you should
was
say
easy.
Bruce Wayne. I don't. It seems like you're saying it's predicated upon it being a Batman world movie.
no, but he's
But-
going there to confront.
Yeah, but the fact that the kid is at his house property,
All right.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't-
So
I
both
don't think so
object.
either.
I
don't
think that's
I-
fine.
We're down to
I-
one still.
I think that's fine, man.
He shows up to the heavily guarded Wayne benefit event, and we're shown protesters being thrown by force away from getting in, and he walks right past them and gets in. Just conveniently,
Well-
walks right past everybody being thrown aside.
Okay, personally, how I read that is that the one thing Arthur has as a superpower is he's invisible.
My point about these things is this is the dream logic, because this would never happen.
Right, that's also true.
Because
I know.
it's
Right.
dream. Because it's
I don't
not
know, but is that a coincidence or is that just like
convenience.
It's
I should
convenience.
redefine these
Yeah,
as
that's
conveniences.
convenience.
That one.
They
might be
just-
like
they're
that.
right on
also
the-
like you just said? Did it even happen?
Right.
I don't fucking know.
And that's why I'm bringing it up with the dream
Right.
off the dream logic.
Right,
I
right.
put this in there off your question about
that
the dream logic.
that definitely would be something I would point to as dream logic.
This wouldn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
He wouldn't walk up to Wayne Gate looking for Bruce Wayne and his dad, and Bruce Wayne's just there.
Right.
There's no way.
Right.
And
I'll
Alfred's just there.
allow it.
So we're on 2.
He manufactured an entire
Yeah.
relationship with a famous person.
Right.
Like his mom might never even have met Bruce Wayne. You know what
Right.
I mean? Yeah. Right.
His comedy routine tape just so happens to be passed along to Murray Franklin.
His comedy routine was taped. It's 1980.
It just so happens to be passed to Murray Franklin.
Right.
I think that's a coincidence.
And
Do you
that-
object?
No, that would also kind of
Dream
hit
logic.
dream logic
Mhm.
a little bit.
And my question is, why does it work? Why does Jamie go, I object? And he's like, Jamie, who's I think is a strict judge,
yeah,
it
I
doesn't
don't-
bother him.
I don't like coincidences, but yeah, that one.
I
doesn't
think
bother me too
it
much.
doesn't bother you because I mean I don't know about you guys, but I read the whole movie as like whatever's happening could be anything.
And that's
They've
why I
already
wanted to bring this
established
up.
that. Yeah, they've already
Because
established
I
that all
feel
bets
like
are
in a
off.
standard drama, these things would not fly.
So they would not fly. Right.
And that's why I think it's interesting.
I think what
and
you're doing
worth
is you're
discussing.
proving it's all a dream.
That's what I'm trying
Yeah,
to
you're
say
it's
here.
dream. You're right. Yeah.
Not only is it passed along to Murray Franklin, but then Murray Franklin just so happens to think it's good enough to to play on his show, which also just so happens to lead to public demand so high that he is invited on the show. That's a coincidence upon a
mention-
coincidence
not to
upon a
mention-
coincidence.
Upon the fact that he's already admitted to the audience and to whoever else that he wants to be a stand-up comedian, and we watch the moment
Yeah.
where his idol says, "Hey, come on my show and be a stand-up comedian."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, dream logic.
Dream logic. Right.
Right. So there's. So
Like
are we?
fantasies.
Do you approve of 4 now?
Just something like that. I
3?
think we're at like 3
3
or
or
4.
4.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
While being chased by the cops, he escapes into a train that just so happens to be full of rioters wearing clown masks, which conveniently allows him to escape.
Yeah,
He's
but
in a city with a riot going on.
yeah,
though.
that's the thing. I think that's more a setup payoff.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'd give that a
Okay.
setup payoff.
Because
Okay.
that's been established that
Okay.
that is
No,
Paul.
here's
thing
where it
that's
would be a
bubbling up.
coincidence: is if it was a random circus that was in town.
Okay.
Then I'd call it a
A
coincidence.
God,
random circus.
I wish it was a random.
That'd be
circus.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm.
It was if the insane clown posse was in town. You know,
In the 80s.
In the 80s.
Right. Yeah.
On the way to jail, the police car. You're gonna say this is cause and effect. Then, the police car just so happens to be rammed by one of the rioters who free him from captivity. To me, it's like a Deus Ex Machina. Like
Yeah,
he was going to jail and he's just bam, he's free.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Deus Ex Machina.
it is
Coincidence.
That
Yeah.
is, that is.
His actions just so happen to lead to the death of the Waynes and the creation of the Batman.
I think
Coincidence.
you could boil all this down to, isn't it all just a bit too convenient? Right. And now this doesn't really have to do with the script, but I was talking with some friends about this, and it was like the overarching theme of the Joker as a character is that he's never told the truth.
Right.
And this movie's almost, they could keep, I said they should just keep making Joaquin Phoenix movies
Oh my gosh.
as the Joker, and every one is a different origin story. This is one, and you can do
Dude.
every time it's different.
I would love
Because
it.
there is none. It's
Yeah.
like this is him just making up.
But I
whatever.
don't think he's
Right.
lying. I think he believes this.
No,
is
he
real.
believes it.
I
But then
think he's like,
but
yes.
but you believe, but you can believe that his brain would like glitch again, and then he would see.
He would be like, oh no, wait,
No, it
that's not what
actually-
happened.
This is what happened.
So
actually,
so I
you know.
brought that up because
And if it makes $1 billion, we're going to see actually, this is what happened.
I have 2 reasons why I think it works. So I brought all that up because I don't think it should work, given all of those things. But I think it works. I am in favor of this movie. I'm on the movie side. So I think
I wasn't expecting that, to be honest with you.
really.
Yeah.
We'll get to the one thing I don't like.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring that up for 2 reasons. Bouncing off your dream logic, because I think the dream logic is kind of explored through the coincidences.
I'm
and
glad that wasn't a
conveniences.
garbage point. Okay.
No. I thought it was a good point. I was like,
Okay.
this is the perfect place to fit my
Okay.
my observations about all this. But also, is it a comedy or a tragedy? Because in comedies, we forgive coincidence and convenience because that's how comedies work. In a tragedy, we never forgive coincidence or convenience. We only forgive one. And to me, I think that speaks to the fact that the person telling the story believes this is a comedy. Every single fucking scene, it's brought up. It's brought up over and over. My life is a and there's that opening image is him doing the 2 famous tragedy comedy faces.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember what it's called, like Sock and Buck or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he starts out with it crying, and in the end, he puts it up. So, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think?
I didn't think of that. I like what you're saying, though. Like you're saying, you're basically saying that
all of this works
The
because
Joker
it's a
views it-
comedy in the Joker's eyes.
because Arthur views this all as a comedy.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Right.
And that's like the end when he says you wouldn't get it because the whole thing's funny.
And as we've talked about on this show, when you were talking about comedy movies, just to define it for everybody, you can get away with a lot in a comedy film.
Yep.
Yeah, and back to that Robert McGee arc, the anti-plot one. A lot of comedies fall into the anti-plot,
Right.
like Wayne's World and stuff like that.
Yes.
because they do have coincidence. and
Yes.
they don't really follow the typical world rules of cause effect and things like that.
Dude, yes. And that's what all of this to me like supports this weird the card says like I laugh at things I shouldn't laugh about. I laugh in the face of things that should make you uncomfortable. I mean, that's like the whole movie.
So
Like,
this, I think this is a perfect segue into talking about theme,
Mm-hmm.
because what is it saying? You know,
man, I don't know.
I think that's the hardest question you could
Yeah.
ask about this movie.
I think
that's what everyone's struggling with.
That's what keeps me from being like, this is a masterpiece and this is a cheeseburger. Because when
This
yeah.
is the work of a hack.
Yeah, yeah. To
Like
me-
that's all those. Like I don't know because of that question,
Right.
which I kind of like that I don't know yet after gestating about it.
My problem is I don't think there is an answer to it. It's not that
No.
I don't think the reason I think you don't know is because it's not.
It's
there.
not there. I think
That's
it's
my
not there.
gut.
I've seen it called Hollow.
Yeah.
There's nothing there. There is no
Dude.
theme.
No way.
And it
There's
feels
themes.
It's overrun with it.
There's overrun with themes.
It's fucking messy.
It
Yeah.
feels like a movie that should have a easy, like a kind of thing that, oh, this is what it's talking about. But I don't really know.
So
It's kind of surprising to me that it's also a Joker movie that looks like it's been adapted to a Joker movie. When I'm like, you know what? In a lot of ways, this is the most Joker movie I've ever
Yeah, dude.
seen because I can't trust anything about it.
yes.
And I feel like that's what the Joker should
the
make
second
me feel.
time watching it, those were the things I was latching on to.
Yeah,
the second
yeah.
time I was like, this is like exactly what. The first time I was like, what? Okay. And the second time I was like, no, this is the Joker's origin, exactly how it should be. Confusing.
I'm
and fucking-
empathetic to him. I love him.
Yeah,
I hate him. I don't
yeah.
trust him. I do trust. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, he's kind of good, but also terrible. Like, yeah, I don't.
I wanted
yeah.
to make one line about that tragedy comedy before I kind of like, I don't know what the theme is. While he's killing his mom, he
Mhm.
says, I used to think my life was a tragedy, but now I realize it's a fucking comedy.
Right.
As he's finally realizing that his purpose is to not like try to be a good person
Right.
and just start killing people.
But at the same token, on that, everyone he kills in this movie is his own personal bully.
I agree. Yeah, it's a good
There is
point.
it like I mean I really try to think back to it and like he doesn't like he opens fire on Murray in that studio. He doesn't just start shooting everyone.
No, just
It's
him.
Murray. Murray
Dr.
made
Ruth
fun of him.
escapes.
Yeah, Dr.
Right.
Really, yeah.
Yeah, it does. But like you know what I mean? Like think
Yeah.
about everyone he specifically kills. It is
Yeah.
a personal vendetta
Yeah,
and it is
Reve-
because they are
vengeance,
and
yeah.
they are bullies.
Mistreatment.
They actually were the ones that sinned.
Yeah,
and he
it's
brought it-
so-
So there is this bit of my mind where I'm like, man, the unreliable narrator, the Joker manipulating us, he kind of frames himself as like a sick Batman a little bit because the people who wronged him were wrong.
Yeah,
They're bullies.
that's why I wanted to ask you about the lesson factor.
And I was struggling with it when I was watching the movie. So a lot of times in a tragedy, you have a movie where somebody should learn a lesson, they don't, and that's why it's a tragedy.
But
You
the
know, and
audience learns the lesson.
But the
that they
audience
should
learns a
have
lesson,
learned.
and the audience goes home and goes, "Well, I wouldn't have done that, so this is a happy ending for me, because I would have learned the lesson and happily ever after." So it's an up ending. So even though it's a down ending, the audience goes out with a positive message.
Okay.
This movie, the only message I kind of get is like, kill your enemies will make you feel better.
No, I would say kill
I-
your enemies and they will see you.
Yeah, it could be.
That's
I feel like
good.
Arthur's main. If I had to pick
Right.
one of the goals out of the many, I would be like him being noticed is the most important thing to
Yeah.
him ever.
And then in the end, everyone notices
Right,
him.
and you know
That's really good.
it's a movie about a revolution against the rich
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
that he does not start or have any investment in. The only thing about that revolution that matters is the fact that those people now see him and hear him and will follow him,
Yeah.
which he doesn't even have the same ethos as
He's
them.
not interested in
It's-
that. Yeah.
Nuts. It's
Yeah.
really nuts if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanted to read because you sort of look for two things when you're trying to figure out theme. You go to the classroom moment early on
Right,
that
right,
kind of
yeah.
sets up the debate, and I'm sure we could find one somewhere in that social worker scene.
Yeah, it has to be a social worker.
I didn't dig into that, but I think it's saying, I don't know what the lesson is. I think what this movie is saying is villains aren't born evil, they're created. We create them through mistreatment and lack of empathy. I think that's what this movie is like trying to say, but the message is so mixed for me, messed up for me, because I'm a fan of this movie except for in those final moments, even though I think they're like really memorable and resonant because of
Let me
his
ask you
line.
this though: do you think they're happening?
Do I think they're happening? I don't think that matters
Okay.
as far as from
Okay.
the storytelling standpoint. I think it's
Okay.
irrelevant.
I
Like,
think,
from
but that's all I could think
'Cause,
about at
like,
that point. At
is
that
it
moment,
happening?
I was the only thing I was thinking of. Like, there's no way this is what's happening.
Wow.
We're
I
just-
think that's like the Murray thing is the one thing that maybe did happen. Like maybe
Oh yeah,
even
no, I'm
just
talking. No,
showing
I'm
up.
talking about the people like pulling him out of. Once to me, for some reason,
Oh.
once the car hits the other car, I was like, something right there. I'm like, we've switched over into Dream World
Mhm.
again, where
the
that
dream logic.
the dream
the
logic,
Deus
has-
Ex Machina. Because
It's all guess-
he's
it's a
back,
guessing
it's a guessing
game.
game.
it's a
But
guessing game.
because because it's going back to your lesson, the audience learned the lesson. Like to me, the lesson that we're supposed to learn based on the evidence is Joker says, "How about another joke, Murray? What do you get when you cross a mentally ill owner with a system that abandons him and treats him like trash? I'll tell you what you get. You get what you fucking deserve." And he shoots Murray, and that's his triumphant moment.
right.
And to me, that goes with what Jamie's lesson is, which I think the movie, whether it is intentionally doing this or not, that says, hey, if people wrong you and mistreat you and don't give you empathy, you should kill them because that's what they deserve. I mean, that's how this character triumphs. That's his big win. That's how his rise to fully arc is in that moment. So that's why it's messy
I'm
for
not
me.
disagreeing with you.
That's
It
why-
seems too clean.
That's what
I don't know why.
like it. I mean, it's in the words.
It's in the
and
words.
in
You're
the
right. I'm not
actions.
disagreeing. I'm
And
just,
to me, that's where I go. So this is why I wanted to bring up the Paul Schrader thing. So Paul Schrader said that in Taxi Driver, in the first act and in the second act, he wanted to manipulate the audience to feel as much empathy as possible as they could feel for Travis Bickle, given what he was doing and the situation he was in. And in the third act, in his actions, he wanted you to root against what he was doing. And this movie,
It's the
I
inverse.
don't think they want you to root against the Joker's actions at all. I think it's the opposite. And to me, that's what I don't like about it, because to me that messes up the message, which is like, because I think they could have done this. I'm not saying how I would rewrite it, but I'm saying
so
like,
that also goes with what I was saying earlier too. Like if you compare the Travis Bickles and the Arthur Flex, Travis Bickle wished that his movie ended
this way.
I almost felt like this movie was the wish fulfillment of Travis Bickle. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Like Travis Bickle wishes he was carried out by a mob that was ready to burn down the system,
Yeah.
right?
And Paul Schrader is saying, I want
Wanted
you to root
not
against
to want
Right.
that. And this movie gives it to you, but then again, at the same time, it's not reliable.
True.
We've been given so many examples of why it's not.
True. And another thing I wanted to ask you guys.
I think part of it's execution, though.
that's what I'm
It is.
saying.
Yeah,
the
you're right.
execution
Look,
is off in that moment.
I think when he goes on that show, we're excited for him to go on that show and see what he's going to do, as opposed to like fearing what he's going to do or
Right.
dreading it or wishing Robert De Niro would live or wishing he'd come to his senses.
But movies do that sort of stuff all the time.
Dude, and I'm glad
so,
for the surprise and the shock. I'm saying all of that is super
yeah.
super artistic and very like
it's
well
just
done.
what
Martin
message-
Scorsese does that.
No, it's what message
Yeah.
it's sending is all I'm
That's
saying.
Yeah,
my
right. No,
question,
I'm
is
agreeing
the
with
lesson
you.
that
Yeah.
we're
I-
supposed to take from this based on the intent.
But I wonder if, in Todd Phillips' mind, if he was trying to do the Taxi Driver ending, like, okay, at this point he's a monster.
You shouldn't be
and you
rooting
shouldn't
for
be
him.
rooting for him, but maybe the execution wasn't
Dude,
there
how
to
could
figure it
you-
out.
I mean, the way they craft it,
Yeah,
you want him to be like
Maybe he was just too much. He wanted to have the cool scene, and he
There's-
didn't do the dark
there's, like-
scene. And
There's
I
like
don't know.
meta on top of meta here. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's like a movie that's made by the Joker.
Yes, that's exactly
It's
what it is.
I mean, it's a movie made by an angry comedian who doesn't feel that he's been justified in this world too. So I mean, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's to some degree there's that too. It's like
Yeah, which to me is like, and
you should hate the message.
yeah,
Like,
Well-
it's the Joker telling you.
well,
What-
that's
good point.
yeah.
that's just it. It's like that's what nihilism is, right?
It's
like
nihilistic and
it's
hollow.
like a 16-year-old angry person writing a story, and it's just the world sucks. Then you die and you kill everybody in the end.
But
And
if-
that's it.
But I
But
think that I
At his
think,
core, isn't the Joker a nihilistic, hollow villain?
but
that's always what he's
oddly,
been.
I think what he said there is very not nihilistic. Is very
But,
cause and
Jimmy,
effect.
I'm not
You
saying
got-
what he said there, yes, but I'm saying the ending is a very Joker ending.
Yep.
He's trying
Right.
to tell us bad is good.
Right. No,
yeah.
no.
He's trying to like fool us.
Yeah, that's
you
a
know?
good point.
Yeah.
Here's the interesting thing about it. So, that moral premise thing that I talk about
Yeah.
sometimes,
Mhm.
where he says that no movie
the
with
book,
a,
right?
with a book.
Yeah.
So he has this theory, this guy Stanley Williams, that no movie with a negative ending, we'll say, and negative isn't down ending. It's kind of what I said before. Like if we can recognize it's a tragedy, we can take a message and have a positive ending. But he claims that no movie with a negative ending, like a nihilistic ending, ever makes money at the box office. When I watched this, I was like, this might be the one to totally, because I can't think of too many.
We talked about The Mist, and that didn't do great.
And that didn't do great.
Yeah.
And most of them don't. And then 7, I'm unsure. Like it's a hard one to Rubik's Cube out the theme a little bit. We should do that one day.
Yeah.
But this one was one I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is a nihilistic ending and it's going to make $1 billion. So so this is going to be the one that he'll have to hear the rest of his life.
What about Joker? $1 billion.
Right. So do you think the reason it's working for people, and it even kind of maybe works for some of us, is because of all the character building and empathy they put the work in beforehand, so that it can be either be forgiven or even maybe understood at the end?
Just the artistry on display from everyone involved.
Yeah,
the performance.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
in the end
so
of the
good.
day. In the end of the day, he also does what you said. He only kills the people that deserved it. So
he doesn't seem that bad.
If he went and killed everybody
from a cinematic, how the way we define punishment cinematically.
It's right. Like he's not good. I'm not saying that.
Yeah. When the way we define that people deserve death in
Dexter.
cinema.
He does a Dexter. He kills all the bad people.
It's strangely John Wick-esque. He writes his he writes his wrongs.
Right.
He does it through a horrible way. But at least he doesn't go and kill the dog on the way out or something.
Yeah, I don't think that's the thing is. Did you guys
Man.
get the feeling? I don't know if this is a script question, but did you guys get the feeling that he was in? The violence is something he wants, or he just likes the end, the means. Like it's a means to get what he wants.
Great segue. I want to talk about because it's not on the sheet.
Okay.
I think it's all connected.
Okay.
I want to talk about what you guys think his arc is. I don't know. That's why I'm asking. But I'll point out what I think his stasis equals death is, and it's fucking bizarre.
What is stasis equals death?
Jamie.
So stasis equals death. It kind of goes to that six things
that needs fixing.
Yeah.
It basically says at the beginning of a movie, like during the setup, they are in a position, a rut. They're stuck somehow. That if they stay in that position, they will die either morally,
break
their
the mold.
soul.
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
they have to break
Yeah,
out.
okay.
So that's stasis.
Okay,
Yeah.
I think
Snyder
his
thing.
stasis equals death is my mother says I was put here to spread joy and laughter. The belief that he should show everyone empathy and try to make people happy is leading to the cruelty
That he's
and the
experiencing.
mistreatment that he's experiencing. Him trying to be a good person is his stasis equals death, I believe. That is the weirdest fucking setup for a character I've ever seen.
So the thing it is a Joker movie too. So the thing that's breaking him out of that is the second he decides
deciding that I'm going to be cruel and I'm going to stop caring about people.
Which he
and
does.
That will lead to my success.
He does say about killing. He's like, it feels good and I don't care.
It's fucking weird. I think that's his arc. I think it wants you to root for that.
Here's a weird.
I think that's what it is.
But shouldn't it though? I mean, it's a villain movie. When you're writing something like this with an established villain of 70 years, wouldn't you aim for that type of thing?
Well, usually what it would be is some kind of tragedy.
Right.
Yeah.
It
would be the thing.
Yeah.
Like, should Walter White have chosen to go down that path, or should he have stopped while he was ahead, or should he have done the thing? Something like that.
Right.
That's usually what it is. If you want a positive worldview, like to send a message out that the world can be a better place, that's usually what it is. This movie doesn't do that, and it's a blockbuster. Here's one spot that I found interesting though on that path. One of the most interesting moments to me was when he let the little person leave.
Yeah.
The guy leave.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he was kind of sweet to him, and his voice is normal. Joaquin Phoenix.
That was like the moment that because
he
the
says
most
you
empathy.
were the only person who was nice to me.
I'm not going to kill you. Whatever his name is, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And he's kind of nice to him, and his voice sounds very sane and almost.
He does give him a little scare though.
He pats him on the back too. He's like,
and
"Get out of here. You're good."
He gives him a scare, like he actually has a joke that works. It's the most lucid moment for him in the whole movie.
And Jamie, I'm even going to topple on that. I thought it was extremely lucid too.
Yeah.
Because I was like, he's just going to let that guy leave after he just murdered someone in his own apartment. Because I was like,
another dream logic thing, no cops or anything.
Yeah, there's no cops. But he also is lucid in that he knows that right from this moment, he's going to that
Yes.
studio, killing Murray, and that's
well, he's
that.
saying he's killing himself. I mean,
They show
that's like
they
what
show that's the
so
decision.
he's gonna die. It doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yeah,
But
that's what he's doing though. He knows he's going to that studio. He's not
Yeah.
coming back here ever
Right.
again.
right.
Like that's why the dramatic when he walks out of that house, it's like I now am this. There's nothing. Right. There's nothing left.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, it's a weird construction for a character.
But I mean, if I gave it props, is that the fact that we don't have an answer is kind of the genius of it, because the Joker wouldn't give you an answer.
Yeah.
It should be kind of confusing and hollow.
Like I
and
said, stuff
nihilistic.
you see more in Sundance movies,
Yeah.
and things like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Not so much in this. I was trying to.
The fact that it's a DC movie is insane.
I was trying to dig into like the arc of awesome idea. Like, is he a character that doesn't really change but changes the world? But he definitely changes. He changes the world too.
I think
Yeah.
it's the view. There's that guy David Freeman. I do like when we break down arcs to just two things, because it does all come down to that. But I think he's confident like the entire time, mostly about things. One of the David Freeman Beyond Structure arcs is, and I don't have examples of this, goes from sadness, looking at your life with sadness, to laughing at life. And I think he says, I used to think my life was a tragedy. Now I think it's a fucking comedy when he's killing his mom. And in the end, he's laughing at the story he just told. And she's like, what? And he's like, he wouldn't get it because he knows other people wouldn't think it's funny, but he thinks it's funny. So I think that's what it is, but I don't know what that is.
It's
Yeah,
like,
man.
for as much as we say it wasn't that, it's like Walmart deep.
I don't think so,
I don't
man.
know. I know there is.
I think there's a lot.
There is. Well, that's what I was trying to say. Like,
I just think the message is messy. That's all. My problem is with the message in the end.
But I don't know if that's unintentional. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I don't necessarily think that was something that wasn't like constructed in there, because the Joker shouldn't leave a Joker movie like this, which you've never seen. We've never seen a movie
Right.
like this. It shouldn't leave you with a clear message.
I guess it seems so well crafted that it would
Yeah.
seem like it would be they would intentionally try to leave with the message
and while
that's clear.
while it is a Joker movie, it also isn't a Joker movie in that it shows us what he was before the Joker. So
Yeah,
it
yeah,
shows
yeah.
us sadness and loneliness and father figure issues and things. A real Joker movie, either that would all be a lie or it probably wouldn't have.
which
that.
I also kind of think that it is all a lie.
Yeah.
But
Not a lie, yeah.
There's-
There's hallucination.
I like 5 minutes of this movie I think actually happened, and the rest he constructed out of his mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we just got to guess for the rest of the time what the real stuff is versus.
But it
fake.
feels like the stuff that was real was the stuff that came before.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
No,
No.
Right.
and that's where I don't
the
trust
setup.
it, because it does feel like that, and I'm like, that's what he wants me to think. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Romanticizing his own existence. Yeah.
Because that's the most romantic, sympathetic thing he could do is to manipulate your emotions. How heavy-handed it is.
Unfortunately, though, a lot of that is making the assumption that you're again, you know a lot about the Joker.
I know.
And
I know.
If
I'm
we take
saying that
Todd
outside
Phillips
of.
at his word that he's bringing a different movie and sneaking into the Joker,
I agree.
well, you're
Yeah.
making it sound like he's the biggest Joker fan in history.
Right.
And he's constructing this
Yeah.
elaborate Joker movie.
Right. And there's
That's
part of me that
I'm not
I'm like,
sure that that's true.
neither am I.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that it's still a lot of stuff is up in the air, and I'm like, maybe that is how I should feel from a
Yeah,
Joker
well,
movie.
you could take it the way you want to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying it's just
Yeah.
first intention and not,
Intention versus execution.
Is it a mess, or is it like exactly what they hoped?
What
to
they
be?
tried to not have it
It's
cut in
weird.
stone.
I don't
Yeah.
think it's a mess.
No.
I just am not sure that it is delivering the message it wanted to.
That's what I
or
mean. I
if it
shouldn't
has
say
the
mess is
message.
the wrong word.
I'm not sure
Mess is the
about
wrong word.
No,
I'm
I
saying
could be the one.
I feel like the movie's.
I feel like it doesn't stick that
like it doesn't feel like the
thematic
message
landing
is important.
that it's
here.
trying to.
Yeah, I don't. I almost wonder.
Mess is
about
the
it.
wrong word. I mean, it's not cohesive
because I would.
with the rest of it.
But don't you find it manipulating? The whole movie's manipulating.
It's very
I
manipulative.
feel like
Yes.
I feel like the thing we talked about with fuck the rich and social programs are a good thing. I feel like yes, I'm on board. Obviously, all this stuff, but I'm like I almost feel like manipulated by that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Like that's what it's like. I know what you're saying about me thinking it's a Joker movie, but that's
Right.
what the Joker would use to manipulate
Yeah.
me
Well,
Yeah.
to be with his cause.
Yeah, well, Todd Phillips is the Joker. That's what we're saying.
That's what
That's kind of
the
what
reality is. That's what it is.
That's kind of what I said before. Yeah, he's a comedian that views himself as pushed out of the system.
And he's killed a few people.
They
No, I
were
don't
mean
know.
to him,
Yeah,
though.
that's true. He's always had extreme success. So, yeah,
That's what I mean. He's the guys on the train.
this is a really hard movie to talk about with script.
I was like, I thought this was gonna be. I thought we weren't gonna have as much to talk about as we did. Yeah.
It's also like on the surface too, simple.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's not.
Oddly.
It's not like
Weird.
for everything we talked about. It's not cluttered in any way.
I could almost like sit here and just pitch the whole thing from memory.
yeah, I could
after only
probably
seeing
just
it once.
talk through the movie
Yeah, I could-
easily.
I could
yeah,
kinda-
Digestible.
Yeah.
Digestible.
it's not too much.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, they're putting him in really grounded real world situations until the climax. Yeah.
If I had to praise the structure and the script and everything, I don't feel like any of the violence was shoved in for violence sake, which I was not
No.
expecting.
Yeah.
From the reviews and just in general, I was expecting to walk into a movie that was going to be a bloodbath
Right.
for the bloodbath's sake. Like
Mhm.
they were going to have to set up a bunch of things where the Joker
Yeah.
just has to push people into a wood chipper. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that was not what it
No.
was. Every death had a purpose.
Mhm.
And it was personal, give and take, payoff, setup, everything. It was,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
But I think what I was saying earlier about that last final moment is I think where people get upset. That I think what he said at face value, what he says and what he does says, if people mistreat you, it's cool to kill them. Like, and I think people have a problem with that. So, and that's where
I think-
it doesn't. I don't.
Obviously, I don't think the average.
I don't
consumer
want to
does.
feel that walking out of a movie.
No.
But I felt.
You said you saw it
Me.
a couple nights ago. Yes.
Yeah.
Very engaged audience. Did they cheer at that moment? Did they get a
Yeah,
big
good
laugh
question.
when he killed
Well,
Murray?
when he killed Murray.
Murray, for example.
So my theater was packed. It was an audible gasp.
Okay.
I don't think it was. No, it wasn't like.
It wasn't like
it
a,
was like
yeah,
Thor landing in
yeah,
Wakanda or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't like yeah, fuck Murray. It was
Everybody stands up. Woo!
yeah, right. But it was like I don't know, the air in the audience that I saw it with was very like on his side.
Yes.
And I think that's just an act of the fact that he's the protagonist, and that's the audience being with Joaquin. You know what I mean? To some degree, it's like
Mhm.
Yeah.
here's the performance of a lifetime for a guy. Let's all be with him on whatever crazy stuff he does.
Yeah.
But they didn't cheer at the end or anything.
'Cause that-
so
Some of the same
No.
criticisms taxi drivers had over the years is, on one hand, there was the intention that you turn against him. On the other hand, there's a whole group of people that watch that movie and cheer. Yeah.
Mhm.
it's Fight Club
And,
too, right?
Yeah, and
Right.
like John Hinckley killed,
Yeah.
or not killed, but shot the President Reagan at the time, inspired by that movie and the Jodie Foster thing and stuff like that.
Which
So
was the fear here too, right?
it was the fear.
Yeah, yeah.
So there's a whole weird kind of dynamic. So even sometimes intentions go wrong, but
Yeah.
on this one, I'm not even. It's hard
That's
to
what
even
I'm saying. I think it
Uh,
feels
not
like
that I'm
to
saying
me.
I blame movies for that.
No,
stuff.
and
No,
I don't
no.
blame
That
movies.
stuff
for,
happens
I
without
don't
movies
blame movies for
No,
these
in
things.
In other
I'm not-
countries,
I'm
doesn't
not
happen
saying
and
that.
everything else.
I'm just
So,
saying it does feel like to me that we're supposed to cheer for that.
yeah, I'm more trying to decipher it.
That's why I'm
That's
trying,
it.
and I'm trying to decipher
It's-
those
okay,
last moments.
If I try
We're
to boil,
still
I know.
talking about this.
Well, it's a hard thing to talk about. I'm not disagreeing with your saying. I think it's saying that, but I also think we just watched an entire movie saying you can't trust anything. I think the average person is smart enough to understand that what they just watched is kind of fluid. You know what I mean? The movie itself seems very fluid. Like
Mhm.
I don't know what to trust. I don't know what to expect. You admitted you were already lying to yourself. You were seeing things that you weren't. People were doing things that they weren't.
Yeah.
Like, I think the bad message at the end is not necessarily one that is telling. I don't think the movie's telling you to trust it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope. I don't want anyone to learn the message of what you're saying. You know what I mean?
So what
So-
about the after credit scene? What do you guys think?
Was there an answer?
No.
No.
I wanted to scare
I
the
got
audience
the
for a
joke,
second.
Jamie.
Sorry, I ruined it. Because I left right away, so I might have missed it.
Me too.
Yeah.
I might have missed it.
Yeah.
Right in.
Yeah,
Tell
right.
us the after. What would your after credit scene?
I assume it was the kid. It'd be that kid finding a batarang or something. It was Batman. That's something we didn't talk about. The fact that he did create Batman vicariously.
Yes.
Yeah.
He believes he created Batman.
Right.
Yes.
He believes he did.
Yes.
That's
'Cause
really interesting.
that's a more romanticized version of the
That would
possible
actually-
reality
Batman's parents were killed by a criminal.
that was motivated
By
by
me.
his actions.
Right.
I'm more important and special than the Batman.
What did you guys learn from this movie, or from talking about this movie?
I don't know if it's, but the whole nihilistic ending to me, which I still haven't found a way to see it any other way, is I think that's, again, it's almost like watershed because it's the first example I have that audiences have just truly embraced and are going with it, and it's making a lot of money. So it's not necessarily a learning thing, but I definitely think that's a big deal. When I walked out of that, I was like, wow, that's got a
It was a unique movie to begin with,
got a
and
challenging
that
ending.
makes it all the more unique.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's different than other movies.
Man, I'm having a hard time with what I learned is like yeah, I learned once again that long act ones have their place, and if they're based on creating like very clear problems that need fixing enough that like get us interested in many facets of the character's life, that they're absolutely like motivated and needed, and that it's okay to tell a story like this, even a mainstream comic book villain movie that doesn't kick into gear until 42 minutes.
Right.
And it works.
I learned that I don't want this trend to start. I liked this movie. I actually consider seeing it again, but I don't want to see a bunch of movies like this.
Right.
I think that this should be a singular entity. Everything we talked about today, the bad message and everything, I think that really works and is really strong. I think that's strong if it stays alone. I don't want to see a bunch of movies like this. You know what I mean?
Bad news for you, Bob.
Oh, I know. They're coming. And they're coming. They're coming. But I just wish
I'll
they
have
weren't.
2 in my inbox.
And you know what? I mean, that'd be fine. I mean, I'd watch like a Penguin movie. That might be nuts. But you know.
Yeah.
And you could almost argue that we've already started to experiment with this kind of stuff with like Brightburn and
Yep.
Yeah.
even Deadpool in a different way.
Yeah,
We started to experiment.
agree.
Well, I didn't mean the tone. I just meant like we're gonna get a million villain origin stories.
Villain origin
Mhm.
stories. You're
You
probably
know.
right.
That's what
Yes.
I'm saying. Yeah.
And they're all gonna attempt to have like a prestige and class about them,
Yeah.
and it's gonna get so old so quick. But I really kind of learned that I thought you guys would have a different. I learned that my handle in this movie was about the same as you guys, and I feel good about myself because I was really worried about that third act because I was like, I like it. I don't know why, and it feels terrible. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
It really speaks to it. Like when I sit down and watch these movies, like I don't go with my rule book or anything. Like even though that part of my head's working,
Yeah.
I'm just like, am I into it? Am I paying attention? And then I try to decipher afterwards why or think
Why?
about it. And this one breaks a lot of rules, but I'm still into it.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. Mm-hmm.
And it follows a lot of rules too.
Yeah,
like empathy
oddly.
and things like that.
It
So
it's
plays
still-
fast and loose with the rules.
it's not art house like it was kind of said to be.
I
like,
think it feels like a comic book
or
movie
wh-
to me.
or when
It still does to me
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I was.
it doesn't.
That was the one thing. Maybe I learned that, like
It-
that.
it
It's
doesn't
not a
feel-
comic-
it doesn't
it's
feel
not
like
that
the
much different.
type of movie that gets a 10-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival or whatever.
I was surprised,
nonsense.
yeah.
Yeah, I
that.
don't understand.
But maybe that was for
They paid
Joaquin.
everybody in the audience $50.
You know, maybe it was the actor.
I think, yeah, not what we're talking about, but I think it's the actor there.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that's what's. No, I don't think people are thinking about the script as much as the
Right.
performance.
Because
Mhm.
it's undeniable he transforms himself. And, it's
Yes.
undeniable that he can pull off some amazing
I mean, no one's
feats.
arguing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're saying, Jimmy, you saying it's messy, you know, like the ending at least. That's. I see a lot of people saying like Joaquin is great, but the script's a mess, and then now I feel like after doing this podcast, I'm like, maybe it's supposed to make you think that.
I don't think the script's a mess.
I don't either.
Yeah.
But I think it's supposed to make some people think it's a mess.
Yeah.
Like it's part of it. It's constructed to be.
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to talk about. But all right. I think that's
Woo.
everything, right?
Thanks for listening, guys.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
None of this was real.
No, we didn't actually talk about the Joker.
No.
But if you want to ask us questions, you can email us at
Comments, writersblockbusterspodcast@gmail.com.
or you can hit us up on Twitter. Or yell at us in the street. If you see us. It's fine. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You have just listened to Writers Blockbusters, a screenwriting podcast featuring two professionals and another guy. Available only on Thundergrunt.